Hi, this is Judy from Bungalow Quilting and Yarn, and I'm going to give you some pointers in terms of putting isosceles triangles together to do a hexagon. If you put 6 isosceles triangles together to make a hexagon, sometimes you will get too much bulk at the point and it makes it hard to press it flat. So I'm going to give you some tips. So this is a pattern that I'm doing for an upcoming book for C&T Publishing. These are the actual triangles. So when you put them together, you would naturally line up your points and you would place your pins into your triangles to keep them together for when you're sewing. And to avoid having that lump at the top, what you can do is you start in about 1/4 of an inch down. You don't start from the very edge. So what I'm saying is you don't start sewing from up here. Rather, you're going to start sewing 1/4 of an inch down. So if it helps you to take a ruler and measure 1/4 inch in from here and 1/4 inch in from here, and then find that point where that 1/4 inch intersects, you could do that and then you'd know. But I've been doing this for so many years that I'm good at approximating where that point would be. So I'm going to start right about here. And I'm going to sew my 1/4 inch seam all the way down. This edge is stretchy, so because it's on the bias, if it's a triangle, there's no way to avoid a bias with a triangle. So you're going to have to be very careful not to stretch. You may run into the situation where the bottom one, because it's being fed through by the feed dogs, gets fed through more evenly and the top one doesn't. So you may want to take a pin and just gently push along there so that you don't get a bubble in there. Okay, so now I'm all the way down to the bottom. Okay, so I started out 1/4 of an inch down. And then each time I do that, each time I join the next one, so I'm going to join this one, you're going to do the exact same thing. You're not going to start at the very top. You're going to start 1/4 of an inch down. All right. If it makes you feel better, once this is all quilted, it's going to all hold together very nicely. So I don't feel personally like I have to backstitch, but if it would make you feel better, you could backstitch a couple of, and this is very closely related to sewing set-in seams. This is the same method that I teach for sewing set-in seams. And there's another video on my YouTube channel, Bungalow Quilting and Yarn, that talks about that very thing, set-in seams. So again, I'm being really careful here not to stretch those edges because it is a bias edge. It's a little harder to keep them together as well. Okay, so now when I have 3 of those sewn together, I'm going to go and pick up you have a straight shot across the top here. So I'm going to do the same thing with my next 3. And then when I press them, these seam allowances will all get pressed the same direction. I'm going to press it this way. I'm going to press this one this way. And you would consistently do that all the way around. If you're going to press the seam allowances the same direction each time. So here I have a finished one to show you how that ends up looking. So now this is what happens then. Because I left those openings at the top, what you get when you press these all to the same side is this nice little flattened out teeny tiny hexagon at the very top. And that's because I left each one of those open at the very top 1/4 of an inch down. And when I pressed each one of mine all to the same direction, all to the same side, and then I press the center, you get a nice flat joining of all those seam allowances. And look at how perfectly those points all come together. Those points all come together perfectly. I don't think you'd be able to accomplish that if you stitched all the way to the edge. So remember, start 1/4 of an inch down, press your seam allowances all in the same direction, and you'll get a perfectly flat union or joining of your points.